Hello, Kiwanis leaders. This video is about active listening, which can also be called curious listening or effective listening. I'll describe what I mean by this in a minute. And right now, your task is to pay attention like you normally would, however you would normally take in a video like this. And notice what that feels like with a quality of presence and whatnot. See how that feels. You're doing great. Good job so far. And why do active listening? So the outcomes of it, whether you're talking to an adult, a child, a teenager, or anybody, is that the person and the relationship will start to feel more trust, more rapport. It can lead to conflict resolution. And with teams, there's more burnout prevention. And also there's more psychological safety that comes up when you create that kind of trust. And that leads to more effectiveness on teams. Now, some people watching this might be more relationally oriented. Maybe you love people and you love talking to people and hearing about what's going on for them. And people are just so naturally fascinating. And for those types, this might be more obvious stuff, or it might come quite naturally, like, oh yeah, of course I would do that. Or maybe it's, oh yeah, I love this stuff. Ooh, and there's a little distinction I never thought of. So you can just take in what you notice. And there are many personality types, of course. And for example, if somebody's very goals and outcome driven and they just want to get to the decision point as fast as possible, it might seem tedious to spend a lot of time when you think you already know what the person's going to say. It might be annoying to okay, now I have to really listen to them. And you can notice from this video what you can get from it and from your homework assignment, because I think that this is a really important tool in your leadership tool set. And all personality types, all of those ways that we interact with people, goals, etc., are really important for any organization. All of the flavors of what people are bringing, and there's no right or wrong, but some of you might naturally fall into this more than others. Know that you'll be your most effective self by including this in your tool set. So far you've been listening in your default mode. Now what I would like for you to do is strip away everything else in your life that might be taking your attention and really just focus on the words that I'm saying and me in this video. When a person has their attention split between even two things, there's research on marginal attention, is the term for it, but even two or three things, like I'm paying attention to this video, but I also know that I need to do part of these things, or I know that I need to attend to my son or daughter. They're going to need something after this. I need to give them a snack soon, or something like that. It's not that now your attention split onto two subjects, your attention on me. It's not that now you have half as much attention, or rather, you have twice as much attention. Instead, by taking away the other one thing and having only one point of focus, you actually increase your attention 10 to 20 times. There's a huge jump in how much attention you have. It's just something about the way our brain works. You can look into the research on this. I will quote it in the homework. But there's so much more attention available when you really focus in on one point of focus. So when it comes to active listening, there are some things that tend to get in the way of this. And these barriers can include what's called rehearsing. So, okay, I'm going to listen. And by the way, if your attention has drifted, you can continue to whatever default type of listening you want to practice with. Either notice what your normal mode is, or really try and be really present and fascinated with what's being said here. Either way, notice what it's like. And okay, barriers to active listening. If I'm listening to somebody, supposedly listening, but I'm actually rehearsing, That means I'm rehearsing in my mind what I'm going to say next. Okay, when they're done speaking, I'm going to say this. See if that sounds familiar. Another thing is I might be filtering. What do I expect that this person is going to say? And I'm just kind of listening for what I expect to confirm my assumptions and my biases. And another thing might be I'm going into advising. I want to fix the problem. Okay, yeah, like tell me what it is, then I can fix it and we'll move on. So these are actually barriers. They are different than really, truly listening and being present to what's happening. So elements of active listening, curious listening, effective listening, there are so many frameworks and points on this, but some to go to for the purposes of this video are that there's a foundational concept of I'm going to understand, to really understand what this person is saying and really get it before I try and say my piece. So I might have something in mind that I want to say, or a counter argument or something, but first let me really take in what this person is saying if they're the one speaking. And it's really important to be non-judgmental when doing this. It's so easy to say, oh yeah, just don't judge. But what does that look like? How do you actually do it? So we're going to do an experiment. Look around wherever you are. If you're in a room, if you're outside, find an object to put your attention on that is something you are very familiar with, not that interesting. Look at it in the way you normally would. Maybe it's an object in your room that you see all the time, or a plant or a tree that you are always next to when you eat your lunch outside, whatever it is. Look at this object. And by the way, if you're listening with subtitles, you can listen to the audio of me explaining it and of one sort of chunk of information, pause it, do the exercise, and then continue to play. So look at an object, take it in, actually as just like, okay, yeah, I see that all the time. It's not that interesting. Just kind of let yourself be bored. This is just a normal thing you always see. And notice how that feels. If you're bored, if you're disinterested, how does that feel in your body? Just try on boredom. Now, noticing what that's like, the next set of instructions is so if you've paused it for subtitles, this is the next chunk of information, is to look at this object, the same thing again. Imagine that you're, 2 years old, you're a small child, you've never seen this before. What is this thing? It's so fascinating. Take away all of your preconceived ideas and get so curious. What is this thing before you, and what might it be for, and what does it look like? What is the surface? Is it shiny? Is it rough? Is it colorful? Are there a bunch of colors? Like, how is it shaped? How is it put together? Just get so curious. So this process of unboxing, taking it out of whatever mental box we put it in, and really seeing it anew as if for the first time. And as you do that, as you feel like as though you're a small child, this fascination and this curiosity, how does that feel in your body? It likely feels, if you're feeling curious, it feels expansive. And when one is bored, it can feel kind of contracted. If I'm annoyed, if I'm bored, it's like I feel smaller, or there's a contraction, a tension in my body. And when I'm really curious and engaged, I feel bigger somehow. Just notice how that feels, the difference. Imagine being annoyed, bored. Now imagine being, and you don't need to look at the object anymore at this point, and now imagine feeling just so curious and so fascinated. And what is this thing? What are these sensations that I'm feeling even? Just notice those and you'll feel more expansive. Another way to notice is that your eyes when you're really curious, your eyes are bigger. Like, just think of something that fascinates you. Your eyes will tend to be bigger with a sense of wonderment. And when you're bored or like annoyed, you'll tend to narrow your eyes a bit, maybe even glare or squint. But it's hard to be curious with narrowed eyes. You can experiment with this, play with it a little bit if you want, but noticing if your eyes are more open will let you know, oh yeah, I'm really being curious. But if you're like, and your eyes are just kind of drooping or narrowed, you're probably not being curious. So those are some ways to tell if that's what's happening with you. And it's hard to be curious and judgmental at the same time, but it means approach the person with curiosity. How much can you enjoy even listening to them and the fascination with what they have to say? And you really don't know what's happening next. You might have a really good guess, but there might be some nuance in there that if you were to just be like, yeah, I know what you're going to say, it's very, very easy and common from that place to just gloss over and miss an important nuance that they might be saying. Could be really important for you to hear also as a leader. So those are some points around curiosity. And then with judgment, just try and strip away that unboxing element to just see it anew and not add in, here's what I assume about the person and their stance on things and what their experience is, etc. And you're also listening for, so that's one piece around curiosity, non-judgment, that unboxing element. Also, what is their core concern? If you really get it, you would be able to say like, oh, okay, it sounds like this is what you're concerned about, or what you want me to hear, what you're really wanting to convey. And there could be some key words. So if a person is, say, worried versus unnerved or unsettled, there's a subtle difference. If somebody's telling you, hey, our organization wants to do this, and something just doesn't feel right about it, you might say like, oh yeah, you're worried. And they might be like, well, not exactly. Something doesn't feel right. And it feels better to anybody when the listener can really get it and say the right word. There really can be a difference to people where it matters. Like, if somebody says, I'm just frustrated about this, versus, or I'm frustrated with this person, you're like, oh yeah, you're jealous. What? No, I didn't say that. Similarly, there are nuances of words that matter. So you can reflect and say, so I think this is what you were saying, is that, did I get it? And really be curious, did I understand that right? Because sometimes a person will say like, oh yeah, that's it. And it's a relief to them. This is part of the building of trust. And sometimes they'll say, oh no, it's not that. And if you got it wrong, that's great, because it means that you have a chance to get to know what they're saying that much better. Now, as you're listening to them, one, check for nonverbal cues. They're the words that they're saying, also their body language, their voice. If they're really excited about what they're talking about, then that gives you information of, oh, okay, this is exciting to them. They're energized. And if they're like shut down and their arms are crossed and they're looking down, then that gives you information about what's happening for them as well. As they're talking, you can also imagine being them. And there's this saying that I find true, that every person makes perfect sense for who they are and what they've been through in life. So whatever they're saying, it totally makes sense from their perspective. And this is a way to help take away a sense of judgment. If somebody is repeating themselves a lot, if they keep saying like, I'm worried. It's just that, I'm really worried. And I'm worried because sometimes if you reflect what they are saying, that can help them feel heard. But if they continue to repeat, you say, or even if you just notice this? Is that right? Did I get it? Calm them down from that loop. It matters to them, and if they don't think it's being heard, they'll keep saying it. And they might not realize at all that that's what's happening. That's a common sort of conversational tick that happens. And if you are actively listening, there are guides about active listening that encourage people to do things like nod and make sounds like to show that you're listening. And while you can do those things on purpose, if you are doing these other elements, if you're really drawn into the person, it's going to happen naturally. You're going to naturally end up making whatever motions make sense to, because you're truly listening, you're truly paying attention. And when you're curious, it takes no effort to pay attention. You just effortlessly, if I told you, okay, there was a drug that was developed and research has found that if you take this thing, it's actually just a vitamin. If you take it, you can focus for hours on end, and it just works incredibly well. So when you hear that might get your attention, like, oh, what is this thing? Tell me more. And you're not, oh, I need to try and pay attention now. It just naturally happens because you're, oh, tell me more. You're curious. So that's a natural way to have really great attention, is how curious you're getting about this person. And thank you for listening to this. This is pretty much the way of summarizing what active listening is and how to do it. Now, this is a lot of talk that I've been doing. So in your homework assignment to practice this is a great time to really feel it in your body, because you will feel a difference. Again, that feeling of being contracted, being expansive as you're doing the curiosity and the active listening with your partner. And when you are being listened to, and this is really important, when your partner is practicing actively listening, then notice, how does that feel? Because being listened to really well tends to feel really good for people, and that will help you see why it's useful if you do that with other people as a leader. Thank you so much for listening. To whatever degree you're listening or paying close attention. And remember, you can just enjoy the person as much as possible, and that's another way. So try this out, and all the best. Thank you.